everyone, and welcome once again to one of our Happy Memorial Library events. We are totally excited. We're sorry that it was not a live stream, it's a recorded one, but you know what? That never stops the library. We continue to do this all the time. We have some special guests from Fort Hood, and we have Mr. John Macy. Want to wave, Mr. Macy? He is the lead gold cheek warbler biologist over at Fort Hood, Texas. We have Virginia Sanders, supervisor of Endangered Species Management Team. And then we have David Simprich, who is the Endangered Species biologist, and they are from the Directorate of Public Works Natural Resources Management Division. That is a mouthful. I hope you don't have to put that on your card all the time. And they're here to talk to us about a lot of endangered birds. So I'm going to go ahead, Mr. Simprich, and let you take it away. And let me assign your privileges because I'm not really good at this. All right. Okay. All right. We're going to see if you can go ahead and take it away. And if you're not going to be able to share, Alyssa, I'm going to need you to help me share. Haven't done the sharing part in a while.
Okay. Does it all look good?
Now let me get you your presenter role. Alyssa, I need your help with making him the presenter. You should be. Go ahead and try to share, Mr. Simprich.
Okay. I did that. It just says connecting. Okay.
There we go. Man, talk about clunky. We've got it going.
Okay. Does it all look good now?
Yes, it is ready. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Well, I'm going to tell you about the black-capped vireo and what we do at Fort Hood to keep track of this bird. First, I want to tell you a little bit about the bird itself. There are 33 kinds of vireos in the world, different species, and the black-cap is unique among these in that it's the only one where the male and female look different from one another. It's a very small bird, and to give you an idea of its size, here's a picture of one held in my hand. I'm placing a metal numbered ring around its leg. This is the range of the species, and the blue and the green are where the bird breeds, where it spends the spring and summer, and the red area is where it spends the winter. So it's a migrant bird, but it doesn't migrate very far. At Fort Hood, we're right about where this red dot is, and we have at Fort Hood the largest breeding population that's known within the species range. But there are some other fairly large populations as well, and those are shown by these yellow dots. The key component of the habitat of this species are shrubs, very dense leafy shrubs. This is where the vireo hides its nest. And shrubs are promoted by ecological disturbances. And what I mean by an ecological disturbance is this is something that destroys the above ground part of trees and shrubs. And after that happens, most of the tree and shrub species in Central Texas will resprout again from their living root systems, and they sprout from numerous places. So they come back with lots of stems, and they're very shrubby for a while. And that's exactly what the vireo likes. That favors this species. So there are several natural forms of disturbance, including fire sparked by lightning, flood, wind, tornadoes, things like that. And we have all these at Fort Hood, but we have some others as well. We have many man-made disturbances. For example, we have heavy vehicles that sometimes drive through the vegetation and crush it flat. We sometimes have accidental fires that are sparked by military training activities. We have intentional fires that are set to manage the training areas. And then also for training area management, we also do brush clearing, where we use a large machine like the one you see here that shreds the above ground part of the plant. So with all that disturbance, we have a lot of potential black-capped vireo habitat on Fort Hood. And what you see here is a map of Fort Hood. And the areas shown in brown are areas that are occupied by black-capped vireos. And that's about 10% of Fort Hood. So with all this habitat, all this fairly open shrubby habitat, we have a lot of black-capped vireos. But that's not the only thing that lives in this habitat. There are a lot of species that need this type of habitat, and some of those are shown here. So it's sort of an unexpected thing for most people that because Fort Hood is a military installation, which protects it from a lot of other land uses, there's a lot of this fairly wild land out there, and there's a lot of disturbance still in the natural system that promotes a lot of shrubby areas, that promotes a lot of biodiversity. The black-capped vireo was listed as an endangered species back in 1987, and at that time there were few known populations and they were pretty small. Also, it seemed like at that time that the shrubby habitat that the species needs was in decline. That very same year that it was listed, we began monitoring the bird on Fort Hood. Now, over the years from then until now, a lot has changed, and many populations like Fort Hood's have increased, and many new populations have sprung up, and others have been discovered that were unknown previously. So by 2016, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service proposed delisting the species, that is, removing it from the endangered list. And that actually occurred in 2018, and a 12-year post-delisting monitoring plan was established. And these post-delisting monitoring plans are a feature of the Endangered Species Act that is meant to make sure that the species is still thriving when it is no longer listed as endangered. So in 2022, we're now at year 4 of this post-delisting monitoring. So let me next tell you about what we do to monitor the species on Fort Hood. Our monitoring has 2 main goals. The first is to determine the abundance of the bird, and the second is to determine its reproductive success. And to do this, to figure all this out, takes a team of people, and this year there were 7 of us pictured here. The way we get information on abundance is we go to hundreds of locations spread all across Fort Hood, and we count male black-capped vireos. The reason we count males and not females is because the males sing. They make noise so that even though they're hidden in the bushes, we still know they're there. The females, we can't tell if they're there or not. So way back, shortly after the species was listed, we were only able to count 132 male black-capped vireos on Fort Hood. Closer to the present, in 2021, we counted more than 8,000 on Fort Hood. So that's more than a 60-fold increase in our population. The other activities that we do for monitoring are even more labor intensive. And so we can only cover small areas. We can't cover all of Fort Hood. So we've chosen the areas shown in blue here on this map. Those are our vireo study areas. And in those areas, one of the first things we do is we try to catch the vireos that are there and mark each one with a unique combination of colored leg bands so we can tell one bird from another bird. and we catch them in the nets that are pictured on the left side of the screen here. These nets are really fine, and the birds don't see them, and they fly into them and become entangled. Once we've got them marked, then we can map out their territories by finding them and following them around, or just noting locations where we see them. And within each Vireo territory, we then try to find and monitor all the nests that they have to find out if the nests are successful or not. And finding and monitoring nests is actually the activity that takes up most of our time. Black-capped vireo nests are like a little woven basket that's attached at the top to the branches. They're woven out of strips of bark and dead leaves, and it's all stuck together with spider webbing. And you can see that spider webbing pretty well in this picture. It's the white stuff that is wrapped around the branches of the tree to attach the nest to the tree. Another important aspect of Vireo breeding biology is that they're sometimes the host for brown-headed cowbirds. Cowbirds are birds that don't build their own nests. They lay their eggs in the nests of other birds and rely on those birds to raise their young. This is called nest parasitism. Here's a picture of a parasitized vireo nest, and you can see the cowbird egg is bigger and has a speckled pattern that the vireo eggs, the pure white vireo eggs, lack. In most cases, the vireos don't seem to notice this difference. And the other picture shows cowbird nestlings in a vireo nest. Back when we started our monitoring, the first 2 years, over 90% of the nests we found were parasitized by brown-headed cowbirds. And what happens when a vireo nest is parasitized is one of two things. The most common thing is that the vireo eggs never hatch. Only the cowbird egg hatches. The other thing is, if vireo eggs do hatch, the vireo chicks die after a couple days. This is because the cowbird is bigger and hatched earlier and can reach up higher and get most of the food that the adult vireos bring to the nest. So right away, early in our monitoring, we knew that a key to causing our population to grow would be reducing cowbird parasitism. So the way we did this, the main technique we used to reduce parasitism was to trap and remove cowbirds. This is a cowbird trap, and it's baited with food and water, but more importantly, it's baited with other cowbirds. Cowbirds prefer to feed in the company of other cowbirds. They enter the trap through a slot in the ceiling, and they get in, and then they can't figure out how to get back out again. And this has been very successful in reducing parasitism. This graph shows for each of the 33 years we've monitored these birds, what percent of the nests that we found were parasitized. And you can see it starts out really high and it starts to go down. It took us a few years to figure out how best to trap cowbirds. And then we kept the parasitism rate very low. And as a consequence, our population began to grow. Cowbird trapping was very effective for the success of vireos at Fort Hood. When we're out there following these birds around, trying to find their nests, trying to get locations so we can map out their territory, we find out a lot of other things about these birds, things we didn't expect or didn't set out to find, but that are interesting nonetheless, and in many cases weren't previously known. And to illustrate that, I want to tell you a couple stories. One is about a female black-capped vireo back in 2008. She showed up in 2007 and nested on one of our study areas, and then she came back in 2008. This is the number on her leg band, and she paired up with an older male in April, and this was his band number. and they started a nest. And sometime within that nesting attempt, this male disappeared, and I never saw him ever again. And a second male showed up and took over the nest. This male did everything that a male would do at his own nest. He took turns with the female incubating the eggs. He fed the nestlings after the eggs hatched. And so this nest ultimately was successful, and 4 young fledged from this nest. Well, about a week after they fledged, the female abandoned the territory and moved to the territory of a 7-year-old male. This is his band number. And she left behind 3 of the fledglings for the first male to take care of, which he did. And this lone fledgling that she brought with her to the new territory, the male in that territory started to feed that fledgling and would even scold me if I got too close to him. And meanwhile, the female started a new nest in that territory. So this shows that females readily change territories, even if they've had a successful nest. And it also shows that males will readily adopt the nest, eggs, nestlings, and fledglings of other males in order to get a mate of their own. This was something that wasn't previously known. So what do the males do? This picture is an aerial photograph of one of our study areas, and the light lines running through it are gravel roads that the military vehicles drive along. The multicolored symbols that you see scattered across this picture are locations where we saw individual males. So if you look up in the upper left, all those pink dots are places where we saw one male. And the blue dots next to them are a different male. Black-capped vireos are territorial, so what you expect is not to see very much overlap between the groups of dots, because they should keep each other out. So why in the world are there so many different males in this area and this area? Looks like there's 3 males in one area and 4 in the other area. Were they actually sharing that area? Well, in actual fact, they weren't. They each used that same area in sequence. So one male used it, nested, and failed, and then he left. And another male came in immediately, attracted a mate, and nested, and his nest failed, and so on. So what this shows is most males stay in the same place throughout the breeding season, but a few males move when they're unsuccessful. So where do they go when they move? To answer that question, to give you a clue to the answer to that question, let me show you a picture of another study area. In this study area, notice this bird with the white symbols. This bird had a nest and the nest failed. And then the bird relocated 600 meters over here and attracted a new mate, and they nested. Its neighbor, symbolized by the red dots, also had a nest that failed. And then it relocated way up here, and it again attracted another mate, and they nested and were successful. So those were things we didn't expect, but things that we observed when we were out there doing our normal activities. So I thank you for your attention, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Well, I have some questions. Are these actual like tracking devices that once you get them on their feet, is it a computer thing, or do you actually have to find the bird again, look at the number on the bird? How is the tracking done?
Oh, we actually have to find them and see them. And each bird has a unique combination of colored bands. They usually have 4 bands on their legs, and we have 11 different colors to choose from. So we can make up several thousand different combinations. But but yet we still have to see the bird and see those colors and see which leg they're on to figure out who it is.
Cool. Well, I had heard that spider webs are um, something that is feared by birds because, that's how I got like doves to stop hitting my window was to draw white lines that look like spider webs, and they literally would go like that and then they'll go straight up, and nobody's hit a window since that time. So I think it's very curious that these birds would use, was it actual spider webs or does it just look like spider webs?
No, it is actual spider webs, and this is not something unique to black-capped vireos. A lot of birds use spider web as kind of like the Velcro to stick their nest materials together. And I've actually observed them flying up to a spider web and taking a big bite out of it and then flying off with it to stick it on their nests.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, they're clearly not scared of these spider webs.
Yeah. Well, and then I have one more question about your cowbirds. Y'all are, capturing them. Where are you letting them go? Because I have a lot of cowbirds in my backyard and I live in clean.
Well, if we were to let them go somewhere else, we would just be transferring our problem from one place to another. So we we actually euthanize them.
You do.
And so over the years, we've decreased the number that we kill. Like we do not we let the males loose now. We've figured out that there are different races of cowbirds and that some of them do not breed at Fort Hood. And so we let that race loose. They're a slightly different color. We don't we let any young cowbirds loose. We only euthanize the females, and then we use many of the females as lures in our traps, so we don't kill them right away.
Yeah, because I had read that also. When I started seeing them, I'm like, uh-oh, this is not good. They're the finches and the sparrows are going to have, and the cardinals are going to all have problems because of the cowbirds. So
Well,
yeah.
there are many birds that can successfully rear their own young along with a cowbird uh, nestling. It's the problem with the black-cap vireos is that they are so small that their nestlings just can't compete for food with that cowbird. But other kinds of vireos, like there's one called the red-eyed vireo that's about twice as big as a black-cap, that is commonly parasitized, and yet it's a common bird, and it is almost always can rear some of its own young along with a cowbird.
Well, good.
Cowbirds are a
I
natural part of the environment. They're a native species.
and I do have one more question before we move on. Um, I've seen, I think it's grackles, these very big birds that steal eggs and or eating the eggs, breaking the eggs and stealing them. There's something that's doing that. And is this something that the Vireo has to contend with?
It is. They don't have problems with the grackles because the grackles don't live in their habitat, but there are so many other things that want to eat a nice, nutritious egg with a nice yolk in it. Many kinds of birds, many kinds of small mammals, even medium-sized mammals like coyotes will prey upon vireo nests. A long time ago, we put up cameras, little miniature cameras to record what was happening at vireo nests. And we saw a bird called scrub jays. It's a relative of the blue jay, come and eat their eggs. We saw coyotes, even mice climb up and eat the eggs. So it's tough being a little bird. It's difficult being successful.
Especially being so low,
Yes.
that seems why it would be the problem. So, okay, well, great. Thank you for going ahead and explaining those. Now, Mr. Macy, are you ready to do your thing?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
I have to find you. You're called. Oh, look at you. Good job.
How's that? Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Are you seeing my view or your view?
I am seeing your view. So if you hit
There
slide
we
share,
go.
there we go.
Well, thank you very much. My name is John Macy. I'm the lead golden chick warbler biologist at Fort Hood, Texas. And today I'm going to give you a brief presentation on the history of the golden chick warbler and a research project we're working on since 2017. Well, my outline is just like I said, I'm gonna give you a brief introduction. I'm not going to go over the Fort Hood monitoring of the golden cheek warbler, and the reason is it mirrors what Dr. Semprich does for the Vireo. And then lastly, I'm going to go over our geolocator project, going over the methods and the results, and all those symbols on the right are all the collaborators we have on this project. There you go. The golden cheek warbler, it is a small neotropical songbird. Weight is approximately 9 to 12 grams. Length is approximately 12 centimeters, and it is insectivorous. The habitat that they require is mature ash juniper. Males are territorial, and typically each male will have greater than one nesting attempt per season, and the female is the ones that take care of the nest and incubate and build the nest. And they typically lay 3 to 4 eggs. I have seen as many as 5 eggs in a nest, and it takes 10 days for egg incubation and roughly about 12 days in the nesting stage. And if you look at the picture on the bottom right, that is a golden cheek warbler nest, and about 90 to 95% of the nest material is mature ash juniper bark. So these ash junipers have got to become mature enough so the females will strip off the bark and build their nests, and they will also use a spider webs to kind of stick it all together. And at the top picture there is a male cheek warbler. So this is the geographic distribution of the golden cheek. It is the only bird in the United States that has its breeding range confined to one state. And of course, for the golden cheek, it is Texas. Currently, they occur in 25 counties, and historically, they occurred in 38. Typically, they arrive in March, and they start departing for the winter range in late July and early August. And they overwinter in Mexico and Central America in pine oak forests, typically at higher elevations. So as you see here, that is their breeding range, their wintering range, and then their migration detections. So the breeding habit in Texas, as I mentioned earlier, it is a mature ash juniper, and research has shown that a good mix is about 70% ash juniper and about 31 deciduous trees. Ash junipers, as I mentioned, must be mature enough to have peeling bark, and typically that takes roughly 30 years or more. And the ash juniper growth rate is about 0.6 inches per decade. So it's a pretty slow growing tree overall in diameter. And they always use closed to near closed canopies. And once a patch size or habitat reaches below 37 acres, their reproductive success almost stops. So they really require a more continuous habitat for breeding. And this right here is a picture of their winter habitat. And they use pine oak forests, typically in higher elevations. Okay. And typical threats to warbler habitat on the breeding range is oak wilt, wildfire, infrastructure and urbanization, and of course for us, encroachment to military lands. And similar threats, of course, occur on the wintering grounds as well. So this is Fort Hood, Texas, and all the yellow illustrates the warbler breeding habitat in Texas. So you can see we're right here, and The density of warblers in general is more dense down south, and as you move up, in general speaking, it becomes less dense. So this is, next I'm gonna go over the geolocator project. This right here is a close-up picture of a geolocator. As you can see here, it has a light pipe, which is 5 millimeters long. And this right here is the backpack harness that you stick on the bird. So you would place this on the bird just like you would stick a backpack on your back. And the reason we chose ones with light pipes is because the golden cheek warbler has very dense back feathers. And if we didn't choose one with a light pipe, then what would happen is the window that detects the light intensity would be buried under the feathers, and our outcome for our research would not be very good. So, background of the project: identify focus areas for conservation efforts on landscapes to include Department of Defense facilities is essential for maintaining population species and protecting on-post capabilities and maintaining the military mission. Achieving this goal for migratory species requires to understand and manage potential risks during all stages of a species life cycle. However, we can currently lack information on the timing, location, and duration, not only of the golden cheek, but many small species, and to the extent to which individuals come from a specific location spend the non-breeding season in distinct areas for most species. And until recently, our ability to generate migration data for birds was limited to field observations of uniquely marked individuals, such as the one to the right, and tracking devices on large-bodied birds. However, tracking devices such as GPS and satellite transmitters typically require the individual to weigh several hundred grams. So unreliable and we cannot use those on small species. However, today we have an exception, which is the miniaturized light level geolocator, such as the one in the hand. So each geolocator and harness weighs about 0.441 grams. So you can see its relative size to a penny. So it's relatively small. And overall, for this project, we could not put more weight on an individual, more than 5.5% of its weight. So we had to keep it under a certain limit to make sure that they could fly well. So from 2017 to 2021, at 5 study sites across Texas, to include Dinosaur Valley State Park, Fort Hood Military Installation, Balcones Canyonlands National Wildlife Refuge, Joint Base San Antonio Camp Bullis, and Kerr Wildlife Management Area, we deployed geolocators on male warblers at these 5 locations. And the reason we chose males was the same reason they and on the point counts. Males you can detect, and they're easier to refine the following season to recapture and download the data. And then once we release the birds, we recapture them the following season to retrieve the geolocator and the data. And once we download the data, we can estimate lat-long locations and determine their wintering grounds and their migration routes. And then concurrently at Fort Hood and Camp Bullis, we assess the survival rates, the habitat use, productivity, and behavior of warblers with and without geolocators. So we had a control group and an experimental group. So this is basically a snapshot of the process. First of all, you go to the study site. Next, you use mist nets and calls to lure the territorial males into the net. And then once we capture them and make sure they're both healthy enough and weigh enough, we would place the geolocator on the animal's back using the leg loop harness method. As you can see here, without that light pipe, the geolocator would not detect enough light. So what is a geolocator and how does it work? Well, it is an archival data logger, and what it does is it records light intensity. And as mentioned earlier, we have to retrieve it the following season to retrieve the data. As you see here from this map, these are different times for August the 17th of different cities across Texas. And the top line, every location has been converted to Central Standard Time for ease of explanation. And the bottom line is the length of day. So on August the 17th, as you can see here, Austin, Texas, Austin, Texas had a certain start time. How do you get rid of that? Start time, sunrise and sunset at 13 hours and 12 minutes. On Guatemala City, the sunrise is 6:48 and 7:24 and 12 hours and 36 minutes. So on August the 17th, as you move north, the day length gets longer, and of course, the sunrise and sunset events are earlier to the east. So each and every day, the Earth tilts a little bit more, and all these times and time lengths change. So once we do the analysis, we can determine where it is located on Earth because there's an internal clock and calendar in the geolocator system. So how do you process the geolocator data once retrieved? Well, first of all of it is processed in program R. And so first, when you upload the data, you will get a LUX file such as this one. All it is a geolocator measured light intensity throughout the deploy date, which is on the left, and the retrieve date, which is on the right. And so this is all nighttime, and this is light intensities each and every day. So what I have to do is each twilight event, as you see this chart down here, I have to go through each and every one of them to determine, is it a keeper or should I delete it? And this is based on, was it a cloudy day? Did the bird roost in the city where maybe the light was red right past the twilight event? So, for example, if a bird has 9 months of data, that equates to 270 days, which equates to about 540 twilight events that I have to go through by hand. And so typically it takes 1 to 5 days for one analysis. And then once I go through that process, these are the first two plots that I get. This one on the left is a lat long credible interval plot. And so all that is the top one records the longitude for each and every day. And the bottom one is the latitude. And the gray lines, or the gray shaded area, that is the credible intervals. So the tighter the gray line, the more accurate the analysis is. So this one here is actually pretty good. And then the map on the right is a snapshot view of all the location data throughout the data set. The next one I'll get a map similar to this one here, where the red dots are the stopover locations greater than 3 days. The blue dot is one longer than 3 days, or a longer period. And this big brown dot here, that is the overwintering location for this individual, with the black lines being the credible interval. So how accurate are those locations? And this one here is actually pretty good. So results from 2017 to 2021, we deployed 313 geolocators across 5 study sites, retrieved 79 from 95 warblers that we detected at our 5 study sites. And we ran general linear models, and we virtually found no difference in pairing success, fledgling success, or the probability of return between geolocated birds and non-geolocated birds, which is very important because first you have to determine, is there any impact to the individual before you can rely on the location data from the analysis. And overall, the geolocators did not impact the individuals. And this right here is preliminary results for distance, departure date, and travel days. Overall, there was not much difference between distances traveled from each and every study site, their departure date, or their travel days. So this is some information that we can get. This is a single burr from Kerr Wildlife Management Area. It departed Kerr on August the 11th and arrived down here on the wintering grounds on September the 6th. Then it overwintered in a pretty tight area here from September the 7th to February the 19th. And this is not always the case. Some individuals may have 2 or 3 overwintering areas, while some have a very tight area that they stay in. And then this individual left the wintering grounds on February the 20th and arrived back at Kerr on March the 9th. This species has a very high site fidelity, which makes it pretty guaranteed if they're alive, they will head back to where they overwintered the previous year. And then this right here is 5 different data sets. What I did is I chose one individual from each study site, and I ran their overwintering utilization distributions. What is utilization distributions? This one here is 50 and 75%. So basically what this is saying is this individual for 50 and 75% of this time stayed in this geographic area. So this bird here is from Camp Bullis. This bird is from Dinosaur Valley State Park. So this is their utilization distributions for each and every individual. Now it's very important to know what individuals do, but it's more importantly to know what the species or the population does. So for our manuscripts, what we will do is we will combine all the data sets together and run the utilization distributions to see what this population or this test population is doing overall. And then also over here is the migration routes. The fall is a solid line and the dotted is a spring migration for these 5 individuals. So results and lessons learned. Migration routes were highly variable and some birds did not stay in the same location for the entire winter. Routes appeared influenced by annual variation in environmental conditions and the age of the bird. Migration data suggests that some wintering locations extend well beyond the known range. Geolocators appear to have minimal impact on warbler survival. So research implications. This is one of the few studies examining the impacts of geolocators on very small migratory birds, and is the only one that I am aware of researching geolocators on a small endangered species. We have found previously unknown migration routes and overwintering locations as well. Some have gone through Florida, some to Cuba, and some across the Gulf of Mexico. We will help pave the way for similar research on other very small migratory birds. And lastly, this research is part of a larger project examining not only the geolocator work, but is also conducting the threat assessment for both the breeding and the overwintering periods as well. And these are some of the people who has helped in the research throughout the years. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I have a few questions.
All righty.
You know, that this is amazing that you're able to follow the directions that they go.
Yes, ma'am.
And they seem to be just heading into the same spot there. You know, Central America, all up in that area. Do you have any like people down there that or observing them down there that work with you guys up here in Texas?
Yes, man. They have their own organizations, and our maps that I've sent them in the past has already helped them find new overwintering locations as well. The challenge that they have is our counterparts down south is the birds do not sing once they're down south. So it is a breeding behavior most of the time. And so once they leave Texas and they arrive in Guatemala and stuff, they're in mixed species flocks. And so they're with other birds and the forest canopy is really high. So in the past, I think since 2 years ago, they have not detected one single banded individual, even though we have banded probably 10,000 golden cheeks in Texas. They have not identified a full color combination. I think when I was talking to Eric, my counterpart down there, did have one or two partial, and that's it. So it's a little more challenge down there, and this geolocator research project will give them areas to focus in on, but it'll also help determine the areas that they use during migration. Are they using the protected areas, or are they not? So yes, we do have counterparts in Mexico.
Well, that would make sense too, that they're using up here as the breeding ground. It must be a mad dash because you're like working from just March to August
Mm-hmm.
to get as many as you can tag there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we do all the tagging here in Texas. Breeding is say from March to about June is when we tag. Because what happens is when the birds get back and they first arrive in Texas is when they're setting up the territories, so they're more aggressive. So doing the miss net and the playback call is a lot easier at the beginning of the season versus the end, because once they breed and they raise young, it's harder to get them aggressive. So it takes that aggressive territorial behavior to get them in the net, generally speaking.
Wow. And it's basically that particular type of tree that they're getting involved in, huh?
Well, what happens is they will nest in both ash juniper, which you may know as cedar, but they will also nest in deciduous trees. But what they require for their nest is the peeling bark of ash juniper, and that's one of the reasons that they became listed in the first place, from all the cedar cutting, making them into fence posts, and the reservoirs going up everywhere. And it takes a long time for a forest to be mature enough for golden cheeks to use.
Well, and with the weather, the drought, um, seems like finding it'd be harder and harder to find trees these days.
Well, we have plenty on Fort Hood, and we also have the largest breeding population as well. But like this drought overall, it did impact our male success rate some as well, our nest period survival rate. It was down a little bit this year.
Wow. Well, it's just unbelievable what you guys do over there. I wish we were in the live stream, but what we'll do is if anyone, sees the recorded and they have questions, and we will make sure that you guys get those questions over to you so that we can post some answers. Somebody has a question? They have their hand up. No question? We just have a hand up. Do you yeah, unmute? She has a question, but we won't get it right now. Well, anyway, thank you guys. Oh, sorry, my audio is not working. You can chat it. You can chat it and we'll go ahead and get that. While we're waiting, do y'all have any final words about, what you do? I mean, you obviously are passionate, love what you do. But is there anything that you would like to say, ending in your speech here?
You say something?
No, just, yeah, thank you for having us and expressing an interest in our programs.
Thank you. And I see the question. What can individuals do at home to help do their part to help these birds in the area? That's a very good question. I have birds I feed. So yeah, what can we do?
Well, specifically for the golden cheek, they need that old growth forest, where the black cap vireo is just the opposite. So if you have land, you need to let that forest mature. It may take 30 to 50 years, but you have to think also, if you cut it down, it sets it back that much further overall. And for the warbler, in addition, they have to have that continuous habitat as well. And one of the biggest threats in Texas, we have thousands of people coming here every day, and our land is getting chopped up in smaller and smaller pieces. So it's becoming more and more fragmented. So by trying to stop that fragmentation for the warbler was one of the best things to do.
Yeah, thank you. And Dr. Sibridge, do you have anything that you would like to say?
Just in general, I would just say, as maybe a member of the public, you maybe have this feeling that scientists have figured out almost everything about wildlife. But from our point of view, there's always so much to learn about these birds and or any kind of wildlife, that it's you always just feel like we only know a little and we still have a lot left to learn. So it's a very interesting field to get into. It's really exciting to discover things that were previously unknown.
Well, I'm meeting a lot of people from you guys over there, and I have never met more passionate people about what you do. So we are really grateful. And we have a message. Thank you both for a very insightful and educational presentation on both birds. And many thanks for the research and efforts you and your teams are doing for these birds. And personally, and from us here at the college, we need people like you to continue to find out, because otherwise we will be losing many species. And the very fact that you guys have raised the population so much, um, you know, it shows that what you are doing is helping and working. So, we truly thank you for doing all your hard work, standing out in the bushes and the the trees and everything. So
Cindy, another really important thing that we do that you may not think of is take a look at these pictures of John's teams there, and look how many young people there are in these pictures. And I have similar pictures of my crews through the years. And another important thing we do is we provide a lot of experience and training for a lot of people who are just starting out their career in this field. And it's great to be able to mentor these people and then see their careers advance through the years that you know them.
well,
It's definitely one of the important things we do.
are they volunteers or interns that come through with you guys?
No, they are paid field assistants. They do this work for a few months every year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So do you take people my age?
Come
I've
on.
had
You don't need to answer that.
I've had people on my crew who I think are older than you.
Well, that's neat. I mean, can they contact like your department, or if anyone's interested, or is this like a job that they go through?
there are some online websites that list jobs in the wildlife field, and that's the sort of place you would see these jobs announced. Usually in pretty soon in for the Vireo crew, it would be November and December. For John's crew, I think it's a little earlier.
Yeah, we always try to advertise by October or so, in the end of October. We like doing our hiring prior to the Thanksgiving and Christmas time.
Wow. So students, everyone, yeah, definitely look into that. And do they have like a website, or like is it just Fort Hood, or where would they look for these opportunities?
There's let's see, I'm not actually involved in posting the jobs, but I believe one of the places we announce them is Texas A&M has a wildlife jobs bulletin board online. And so if you search for wildlife jobs, Texas A&M, I think you would find it. There's also another one that is posted by the Ornithological Societies of North America. So it's just jobs related to birds, not all wildlife.
Okay, well, awesome. Well, I hope everyone, definitely looks into that, because this looks like it would be really awesome to do. So, thank you for sharing that part of it. We are thrilled. We are so sorry that we had a little bit of a late start here. And you lucked out. You didn't have to do the live stream with us, but we will definitely have this posted. Thank you all again for coming. Before we go, let me make a couple of announcements. We have another Fort Hood group that's going to be talking next Wednesday, September 7th. We're going to be doing pollinators and monarch tagging. Fort Hood over there is just really, really active with our environmental issues. And so we are really thankful that we have you guys. We also, on September 21st, we're going to be doing stormwater and pollution. You guys are a wealth of information in terms of environmental science. And so we love having you guys come. And y'all have been enriching us this entire year. So thank you so much for your participation and your dedication to this partnership. We truly appreciate you sharing your wealth of information, and just keep coming because we're loving it. We're loving it. So, all righty. Well, thank you so much. And we will see everyone next Wednesday with our butterfly session. So thank you again, guys. And
Hey, thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. But don't go anywhere yet.
Oh.
All righty. And then I'm going to take us out this time.